Welcome to Fantasy Football Live. I'm Justin Mooney.
And I'm Nathan Zagura from thefantasyconsultant.com.
And we are going to go over our starts of the week. Our first start is the quarterback position. He's of the Buffalo Bills, and it is Trent Edwards.
Edwards is a great start this week against the New Orleans Saints, who allowed 391 yards and 2 touchdowns last week to Kevin Kolb. On the year, they're allowing 298 yards passing, 5th most in the league, and Edwards himself has looked sharp out of the gate, throwing at least 2 touchdown passes in each of the first 2 weeks. He's got T.O. and Lee Evans out wide. You got to figure the Saints are going to hang a lot of points on the Bills, so he's going to get those garbage time points throwing the ball in the second half, and that's good news for your fantasy teams.
And as bad as Trent Edwards looked last year, he looks that good this year. So especially with a matchup against the Saints, I think he's a great start. Next, running back, Willis McGahee.
Roll, Willie, roll. Willis McGahee, folks, if you got him, you got to get him in your lineups this week. First 2 weeks, McGahee over 75 total yards with 2 touchdowns in each of those games. He's the goal line back for the Baltimore Ravens, one of the most potent rushing attacks in the NFL. And the good news was last year, it looked like he may even be the primary back. 15 carries to Ray Rice's 8. Now he faces a Cleveland Browns team that's allowing 205.5 yards per game on the ground and a league-high 5 touchdowns. And take this into account as well, folks. McGahee in 3 games as a Raven against the Browns has topped 100 yards or scored every time out. You got to get him in your lineups.
What I like best about him, 7 targets and 6 catches this year already, which is a lot more than he's been getting usually the last few years.
They're using him as a weapon all over the field, and he gets the ball inside the 5. That's where he gets the touchdown. That's where the money's made.
Absolutely. Okay, now wide receiver. You know, we've been hearing a lot about Manningham, but what about this guy? What about Steve Smith, New York Giants?
Steve Smith, that's right. There are 2 Steve Smiths you need to know about now, folks. Not just the guy in Carolina, the guy in New York as well. 21 targets, second most in the NFL. 16 catches, that's the most in the league. 214 yards and 1 touchdown. Last week, 10 catches, over 130 yards and a score. Now he faces a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that is very generous to opposing wide receivers. So far, the Buccaneers have allowed 5 touchdowns on the season, all to receivers. That's most in the NFL. And the best part, all 5 of those touchdowns have come from 30 or more yards. Look for a big play from Steve Smith. After all 3 of Eli Manning's passing touchdowns this season have come out of the red zone. It's going to be a big-time game against the Bucs, so get him in your lineups.
Now looking at tight end, we've got a guy that was big in week 1, not so big in week 2, but you like him for week 3. Who is it?
I sure do. That's Jeremy Shockey of the New Orleans Saints. Shockey came out like gangbusters with 2 touchdowns against Detroit in week 1, and he's going to continue that kind of momentum this week against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are allowing 337 yards passing per game, second most in the NFL. And when it comes to tight ends, oh boy, are they generous. Ben Watson in week 1, 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kellen Winslow last week, 90 yards and a touchdown. The Bucs' second tight end, Jeremy Stevens, he even caught a touchdown. They've allowed 4 tight end touchdowns so far this year. That's great news for Shockey, who's going to find pay dirt and is a great start.
And now moving on to defense, we've got the Denver Broncos.
That's right, folks. If you need help at the defensive position, look no farther than the Denver Broncos. The Broncos so far this year, 3rd in the league with 7 sacks, 5th with 3 interceptions, and they're 2nd in total yards per game at 253. They're playing phenomenal defense under Mike Nolan, using the 3-4 very effectively to get pressure on the quarterback, and this week they have a great matchup. Jamarcus Russell struggling, 7 of 24 passing last week. That's not going to get it done. And they've lost Robert Gallery, arguably their best offensive lineman. That means more pressure on the quarterback, and the Denver Broncos, a great start on the road this week if you need help at D.
And what I love best about the Broncos is with 7 quarterback sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and they're playing Jamarcus Russell. They're a great start. All right. Well, for Nathan Zagura, I'm Justin Mooney. These were our starts of the week. Fantasy Football Live. We will see you next week.